Volume and surface area, part two. We're going to be talking about cylinders and cones today. If you haven't watched rectangular prisms, you need to watch that first. Now, just like rectangular prisms, you don't have to memorize these formulas. You have your GED formula sheet. Top is geometry. We did rectangular prism last time. Today we're going to be doing cylinders and cones. So you've got your surface area for your cylinder, your volume for your cylinder, surface area for cone, and volume for a cone. The reason why I'm doing these together is they're very similar formulas. You just need to know that a cone is basically a cylinder on one side, but on the other side it goes to a point. So you'll see the resemblance between the two. So first thing, how to draw a cylinder. You start by drawing just a flattened circle, and then come down underneath it and draw the exact same thing as close to it as you can. Connect the two sides. Now there's two important measurements that you need with a cylinder. The first one starts in the middle of the circle, then it goes to the outside of the circle. You can draw that any way you want. Most of the time they're either drawn on the right hand or the left hand. So if you've studied area of circles at all, you know that that line that goes halfway across the circle is called the radius. So we're going to put an R there. The other measurement that you need for a cylinder is the height. That is your straight line going up and down. Now they can take these and turn them on their sides. The height doesn't necessarily mean it has to go up and down. It just means the length of the cylinder. So let's look at our formula. So we're going to start with volume, which is over here. Pi r squared h. Now also, if you study circles, you studied pi. Pi is on your formula sheet. You do not have to memorize it. If you look right up here under circles, under perimeter, over here it's got your circumference, two different formulas for that, and then over here it says pi equals 3.14. So you don't have to memorize pi either. So the volume is pi, which is 3.14, times the radius, which is up here. I guess I should give that a measurement. We'll say it's 5 inches. We'll say our height is 7 inches. So 5 squared. Don't forget that squared. I see a lot of people forget that, and it's automatically wrong if you don't have that. Times 7. That's it. You just have to punch that in the calculator. So if you have the TI-30XS, you're going to hit 3 decimal point 1 4 times 5. Now, if you studied the Pythagorean theorem already, you know how to do squared, but if you haven't, there is an x squared key. I think it's right beside the 7 key, on the left of the 7 key. You hit that one time, and it'll put a squared up there on your 5. Then you multiply, and 7 key, and the enter key. And forgot to solve that, so give me a second. 3.14 times 25 times 7 is 549.5. Now also remember, volume is measured in cubic units. So this was in inches over here. So our answer is going to be inches cubed. All right. Now let's do the surface area. Surface area is right here. 2 pi RH plus 2 pi R squared. Make sure that one's not squared. And this one is squared. 2 pi RH plus 2 pi R squared. Now we're going to use the same measurements that we had right here for this cylinder. So 2 times pi times the radius times the height plus 2 times pi times the radius squared. Touch that on your calculator while I'm doing it. If I'm correct, I got 376.8. Surface area. Area is always square units, so it's inches squared. I didn't show you the buttons to hit, but just from this you can figure that out, where you get the x squared key on that squared. So that's volume and surface area of a cylinder. Now we're going to move on to a cone. So a cone volume is exactly like a cylinder, except for one thing. It's got a 1/3 in front of it. Make sure I got that right. Yep. 1/3 pi r squared h. So to draw a cone, you can draw a flattened circle. You can either go up or down, it doesn't matter. Find a middle point between the two. Sort of draw the top half of the triangle. Now, exact same thing, you need the radius. Anytime you have a circle in a problem, you're going to need the radius. We'll say that's 6 centimeters. Now here's where the cone is different. For the volume, you're going to need this dotted line right here, because that tells you how tall the cone is. There might be a little right angle there in that corner. So you need the actual height, which is h. So that is going to be h equals, say, 10 centimeters. So let's plug it in our formula. 1/3 times pi times the radius squared times the height. So go back to your calculator. To hit the fraction, you hit the N over D button. It's right in the middle of your gray keys. For 1, now you have to go over to the right side of your calculator and hit the down key. Looks like this. And then you're pointing down. Hit the 3. Now you should have 1/3 blinking on your screen. Then you got to hit the over key. You want to go to the right, not to the left. Now your cursor should be blinking beside the 1/3. 3, decimal point, 1, 4 times 6. Hit the x squared key again, beside the 7 times 1, 0. Looks like a lot of buttons on the page, but it's really not a lot of buttons. And it should look identical to this on your calculator. Hit enter, I'll see what I get. I got 376.8 centimeters cubed for the volume, if I did it right. Let's do a surface area. So this is a little different than what we've done so far. And the reason why it's different is because it has a S right there. Pi r s plus pi r squared. There's a few formulas on here that have S. And this doesn't tell you on the formula sheet. Whenever it has an S, write it down. Pi r s plus pi r squared. That S right there stands for slant. More specific, slant height. So let's go up here to our cone. So I said for volume, you're going to need H, which starts at the center of the circle and goes up to the point. S is this line over here, and that's not a 5, that's an S. That means that it's the height on a slant. So it's not the actual height, which is this. It's basically the length from the edge of the circle to the tip of the cone. So let's say the slant height is, it's always going to be longer than that, because if you think about this as a right triangle, this is going to be your hypotenuse. So it's going to be longer than 10. So let's just say it's 12. I don't know what it is exactly. It doesn't matter. Let's say it's 12 centimeters. So in this formula, you're going to put pi times the radius, which was 6, times the slant height, which was our new number, 12, plus pi again, plus the radius, 6, and this time it's going to be squared. Punch that in on your calculator. And I think I missed something up. So let's go back before I tell you the answer. I wrote a plus right here on accident. That is a plus because it's right here. When there are letters next to pi, it's multiplied. My fault. So I figured it out when I was punching in the calculator. So now add those together. And you'll get 339.12. Now you'll notice that I did those separately. I did this, put it there, and I did that and put it there, because I don't have a TI-30XS in front of me. If I did, I could enter all of this and then just hit enter like you can if you've got one. I did this, and then I did this, and then I added them together and got that. So since we're back to surface area, still centimeters, but it's squared this time. So there is your surface area and your volume of that cone. Now we're going to try a few on the worksheet. So it just says find the volume of each cylinder using pi is 3.14. So I'm just going to help you put this in a formula, and then just to show you what the setup is, since I don't have a calculator, you're going to have to practice that on your own. So this was volume, so it's pi r squared h. So 3.14 times the radius, which is 6, squared, times the height, which is 11. Like I said, just because they flipped this one sideways, it doesn't mean that that's the height now. This is still the height. So this is still your h, and this is still your r. So it's going to be 3.14 times 24 squared times 30. Like I said, you got all the answers of these. The second sheet has all the answers. Just practice punching this in on the calculator. Now we're going to address it in a later video. These worksheets are kind of easy because they give you exactly what you need, which is the height and the radius. In other videos, we're going to talk about the diameter, which goes all the way across. So the diameter would be 48 for this. Now, if they give you the dotted line is all the way across, it says 48, you have to know to split that in half because the radius is half of the diameter. So this would be 48 all the way to the top. This one would be 12 all the way to the other side. So if they give you a dotted line like that and then put 12 right above it, then you've got to know that you need the radius, which is 6. But that is more in the circle lesson than it is in the volume and the surface area lesson. So these are the same thing, they're just not pictures. So you can practice those on your own time. There's actually a second sheet that's almost identical to this, except it has decimals. Well, you practice putting in some decimals. But we're going to move on. Surface area of a cylinder. So same measurements on a cylinder, but our formula is 2 pi RH plus 2 pi r squared. And I don't have these memorized. I'm just looking at the formula sheet like you need to do on the GED. So 2 times pi times the radius, which is 2, times the height, which is 7, plus, I'm going to write it down here, 2 times pi times the radius, which is 2, squared. So practice punching in on the calculator. Check your answers on the second sheet. And we'll just skip to this one down here because it's sideways. 2 times 3.14 times your radius times your height. And again, they've got the height sideways, plus 2 times pi times your radius squared. Punch all that in on the calculator and you'll get your answer. We're going to move on now to cones. So you notice for volume, it gives me my dotted line, it's my radius, and my dotted line with this right angle I talked about. Sometimes that's there, sometimes it's not. But it needs to at least visually make a right angle, the radius with the height. You can see all of these, no matter which way it's oriented, the radius makes a right angle with the height. So volume of a cylinder was 1/3 pi r squared h. So here it would be 1/3 times pi times the radius, which is 3, squared times the height. Push that in to get your volume. You can check on your answer sheet on your second page. I'm just going to go ahead and skip down here to one of these. Just because it doesn't have a picture doesn't mean you can't solve it. So once you have this, all you got to do is plug it in where these letters are. All you got is an R and an H. So you get 1/3 times pi times your radius, which is 12, squared times your height, 18. And that's it. Now we move on to surface area. Now if you remember surface area for a cone, you don't need that dotted line going this way, and so they've taken it out. They've made it less confusing. It's not always going to be less confusing on the GED. They might give you all 3 numbers and then you need to pick out which 2 that you need to use. You're never going to be using all 3 ever that I've seen in a problem. So they might give you the radius, they might give you the diameter, they might give you the height, and they might give you the slant height. all in one problem, or one or the other on the radius and the diameter. So surface area was pi rs plus pi r squared. So we got 3.14 times 2 times the slant, which is 7, plus pi times the radius again, but this time squared. You punch that in, check your answers. Now, for some reason on my computer, these last three don't have a spot to answer it. I don't know if that's just my computer that cuts those off, or if yours will cut it off too. Make sure that you do surface area on those three also. And that is the end of the video.